artificial intelligence, all of these are industries that are growing very fast and present tremendous opportunities. So without further ado, let me just introduce our panel today. So each of them will share some of their thoughts on the situation in Vietnam. So first of all, we have Chi, who's our senior manager and head of our Vietnam office. So Chi has been working in Vietnam in sales, marketing, and business development for over 10 years. So she has played a role in developing consumer and marketing strategies for brands such as Abbott, Philips, Panasonic, and Pioneer. She has a specialization in consumer research and a lot of experience in doing consumer research and also industry research in Vietnam. She graduated from Hanoi University in business management, and she has been, she's based in Hanoi, but is heading the Spire Vietnam operation. We also have with us Ms. Ha, who is the founder and CEO of We at Work. So Ms. Ha actually graduated with a Master's in International Development from Cornell University. She spent the last 10 years working in the field of employment relations, industrial relations, and in the not-for-profit sector in Vietnam with organizations such as DAI, the Fair Labor Association, and Respect Vietnam. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Asano-san. So Asano-san is heading the Yamada Consulting Group Vietnam office, and he established the Ho Chi Minh office of YCG in 2017 and the Hanoi office in 2019. Prior to YCG, Asano-san worked with one of the Japanese mega banks in Japan and also in Vietnam and the region, providing financial support in industries from pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and food, and also advising on many mergers and acquisition deals in Vietnam and elsewhere in the region. And he's been heading YCG since 2017. He has a master's degree in economics from Boston University and a master's degree in agricultural economics from Kyoto University, Japan. And the agricultural sector is also one of the key sectors that I think we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, please let me invite our head of Vietnam for Spire, Ms. Chi Nguyen, to start off with her sharing and her presentation. So Chi, over to you, and perhaps you can share your screen.
Thank you. So as Asano-san have short introduced, today we want to introduce to all of you the reason why we position Vietnam as star of C emerging market. So everyone can see my screen?
Not just yet, Nelly.
Not just. Sorry, just 1 minute. Okay.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, you can expand the screen. Great.
Okay. So actually, we are very ambitious to deliver a lot of information about Vietnam today to you, but as a limit of the schedule, we will go very quick. So today agenda, we will go very fast in the reason, the top line reason why Vietnam is a bright spot in the COVID now of the global economy, and Vietnam also a promising destination for the investor, and Vietnam just not a processing play, but also a promising market for the manufacturer and the investor. So let's look closer about Vietnam overall. Vietnam, as you might know, total of Vietnam area is 331,000 kilometers square, and with the population is more than 96. And we are expect that we expand to 120 million by 2050, and Vietnam will leverage at the 15th most populous country in the world, with about almost 27 million households, and the density is 290 people per kilometer square. And with that, Vietnam have more than 70% population is under 30 years old, very young generation. And with the GDP per capita is over 2,700 in 2019, and it's increasing almost 3 times between 2002 to 2018. So the capital of Vietnam is Hanoi, and we also have other 5 main cities, And two big cities is Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. It contribute more than 40% of Vietnam GDP. So look at the population structure by area. Vietnam has almost 36% of urban, and the population structure, as we said above, like we have almost 70% of young generation. That means contribute to the labor force almost 60 million workers, and it growing over 1 million per annum. And 30%, 35% of this is the generation is born between 76 to 70 to 95. And if we look at the worker skill in Vietnam, we have almost 60% of trained worker with 24 certificate worker, and the trained worker ratio is increasing sharply each year by the government efforts. And if we look at the incomes, we can find that Vietnam middle class is contribute around 40% to the population, and we expect that the middle class will reach to 26% by 2026. Okay, so that is a time. The most topic is COVID-19. How about the status in Vietnam? With the most update by today, we have 431 cases, and only 150 case is the community spread, and 276 case is by the entrance, and we have recovered 365 cases already. Vietnam maintained in more than 3 months without any new case in the community, but unluckily for the last Friday, we just found out 30 new cases up to now. Anyway, the Vietnam government with the experience, we are doing very well, and Vietnam government is managing the situation with the best efforts, and we expect that is will have none new case, and the pandemic will expand more. And other highlight in Vietnam, we developed the COVID test on 26th of April, and we recognized by the WTO on the 3rd of May, and we export our COVID test to many countries whole the world. And Vietnam testing capacity is reached to 31,000 tests per day. So Vietnam is similar with other countries. Vietnam also have go through the listed 22 days social distancing, but we had back to the new normal status since the 11th May. That is support a lot to Vietnam economies. And the international flight is suspended since the 1st of April, and up to now only the traveling is for the officer or diplomatic can enter into Vietnam under the medical check, and they have to spend a 40-day quarantine to make sure the situation. And so for all the government efforts in active, so how it react on Vietnam economic. So we can see that why the World Economic Forecast negative growth at 5.2%, and for the most update is even at 7.7%. Vietnam economic still being forecast that we going to the highest growth rate at 4.1%. And we hopefully went back to the track at 6.8% in 2021.
Also, and during the time check, you have 5 minutes. Huh? Thanks.
Okay, so for the many forecasts during the situation of COVID, we can see that other economic they are still going down the rest, but only Vietnam have positive growth. So what is the contribute to the development of Vietnam for the past decade? We can find it the leverage of the FDI and also the export capacity. And if we look closer to the sector, we can find the processing industry is contribute the biggest in the export sector of Vietnam. And with the result of the first quarter of 2020, we can expect that Vietnam still maintain the export leverage to the key export destination. So what did Vietnam government have to do to support the business under COVID? Vietnam government have to launch a 10.8 billion credit to support package to the business, and on 29 May, the government issued a resolution 84 that is we give many incentives for the business that been affected by the pandemic. For example, in interest rate cuts, the delay of tax payment, the land use free delay, and the electric price discount, and also the registration free down for the vehicle registration. So how is business in Vietnam impacted by COVID-19? We can say that, that at the end of 2019, we have around 760,000 business, but for the first 3 months of the year, almost 35,000 business went bankrupt, and it's the first time the bankrupt business is higher than the new. Anyway, for the fast reaction from the government, the good news is like up to June, we have more than 62,000 new business registered, and production and distribution of electric is the biggest growth, with the increasing 40.5%. So let's look at the key industry in Vietnam to see how it impacts. For tourist industry is the biggest industry that affected by the pandemic, not only in Vietnam, but also all around the world. And as a Saigon tourist report, one of the biggest company in Vietnam, they losing 21 million US dollar per month for the revenue. So to support the tourist industry, Vietnam government, he launched a program about Vietnamese, explore Vietnamese to co-op for Vietnamese traveling domestic. And after 2 months of active, we reached 20% of the flight increasing domestic flight, and the outcome of room is already to 90%. And also for the domestic visitor reached to 7 million, so increasing 2.3 times. With the digital and economy service, we can see that for the bank, they discount the cost to increase the transaction. Online grocery and food delivery is booming. It's good help for the economic revenue in Vietnam. It's increased almost 6 billion expect in 2020. Besides, it's at the school and university is forced in online tool for many software service like classroom and hardware also developing. And for the aspect as online develop proof that they are effective, so it will be maintained after the COVID. Manufacturing and supply chain also get a lot of big hit of the effect by 50% of manufacturing company cut out production. The government and textile industry has had this because lacking of raw material. Besides that, in automobile, as they are lacking of spare part, and Samsung, they even have to freeze the spare part and component. To facing with the situation, the company have to diversify their input source, and Vietnamese manufacturer is looking for the new market to supply the material. And here we have Ms. Ha from the Viet Quốc. She's been working to support a lot of business in Vietnam to get over the situation. Later on, she will share with us some of the success case that facing with the pandemic. So
we just have about 2 minutes.
Okay, I will go faster. So for all the effort of the government, and we can say that Vietnam also a very promising destination for the investor. In 2019, World Bank is doing business index will rank Vietnam as 69 among 190 economies that help to Vietnam to attract a lot of FDI. So we can see that for the first 6 months of 2020, we achieved almost 90 billion US dollar, equal to 85% versus last year. But the positive thing is like in June, we saw that we increasing at 3.1%, and it's right up to almost 50% compared with the May. So with this update, we hopefully we can achieve a 2020 target to achieve FDI. Among IT industry, so we can find that manufacturing is the most attractive with the FDI almost 6 billion, and after that is electricity. So besides affected by COVID and the rising in the cost, China is no longer the to-go destination for many business. And for that, Vietnam has get a serious competitor with a lot of advantage. We have the close distance to China, the logistics, the costing, the labor. And recently, we saw that 50 Japanese manufacturers have to move their factory to Vietnam. So active is FDI, the Vietnam government have many policy to call more for FDI, like foreign ownership permission, the reduction of corporate income tax, reduction and delay fee rent, and joint international agreement. And one of the highlights that we can see, Vietnamese government give a lot of support for IT industry. Besides it, Vietnam government also focus in developing the infrastructure to ensure the convenience to investors. So we can see here many provinces we allocate a big industrial zone, and with the advantage of the Long Beach, we have many main seaport cross into Vietnam. That it give very convenient for the manufacturer to do the import and export trading. So let's look at the top potential industry in Vietnam. IT, as previously I mentioned, get a lot of support in Vietnam government. And in Vietnam, we have 5 subsectors that absorb a lot of revenue. Firstly, is fintech that expect to reach to the revenue at 7.8 billion by 2020. AI also is very increasing, and is Vietnamese market is close up with global trend. Software outsourcing is one of the parts that we achieved 8.8 billion revenues in 2018. Economy is highlight and very growthy spot in Vietnam that we expect achieve the revenue at almost 8 billion by 2024. Besides that, is education technical. Besides IT, there are many other potential industries that you can see that we highlight here, like high-end luxury hotel, business process outsourcing, the energy, the construction, food, and also the beauty and cosmetic, and increasing the income of Vietnam consumer. So for that, Vietnam has positioned as a processing destination for manufacture, but actually we also very potential market with a huge consumer client for the manufacturer, and we are catching up with the global trend. Let's have a closer look. Urbanization is in Vietnam.
We have 1 minute to wrap up, so yeah.
Okay, I'll try to put up. Premiumization also showing in Vietnam, and health consciousness, connection consumer, convenience and time saving, self-impression of and publishing is market trend in Vietnam. Follow it. So what is the manufacturer should focus to get the advantage? Vietnam consumer open mind. So lot of new chain to the new business to Vietnam. Vietnam consumer are price sensitive, but anyway, they're willing to pay. So just improve your product and service so you can get the consumer open more pocket for you. There explain more and refer the feedback and comment as the influence of the connected customer. They say the feedback, so you need to have very fast react with the feedback of client. The choice of line over online experience. That's the consumer, they still want to go offline to experience. And one is of the difference between Vietnam and other markets is the traditional chess in Vietnam is still around 1.5 million store, whereas the model chess is only 5.5 thousand store. So if you want to win over Vietnam market, you still need to focus in the traditional trade. Besides that, the booming of online solutions also influence Vietnam market. That is, Vietnam is positioning at 31% of economic traffic in South Asia. And because we have almost 66 million internet users, and they spend around 7 hours per day to do the online, and 78% of total internet users, they have the e-commerce, they are e-commerce user, and they spending around more than 100 USD per one account, and the revenue of e-commerce expect to achieve 9.4 billion. And the growth rate is around more than 8% per year. So, but one of the disappointed from Vietnam e-commerce user is the it still take almost 6 days to they receive their product. So the top e-commerce company are racing to improve the deliver to get the compete. And here is the ranking of the highest traffic of the website in Vietnam. Shopee is leverage #1, and follow that is the Tiki, Lazada, and Sandro. With the economic booming, the online payment is followed with the credit card, is user bank transfer, e-wallet, cash, and other payments. So the technical and infrastructure supporting the e-commerce booming in Vietnam, it gives more chance for the SME in Vietnam to join to the market. So to understand more about Vietnam market and looking for the chance to win over the competitors in Vietnam, Spire with 2 offices in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh will provide you the overall market research solution, and we willing to support you to win over Vietnam market. So that very fast, very quick sharing from Vietnam today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chi. And with that, I can see that we have some questions coming in on the question and answer board. So please do keep the questions coming in. Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Hart from We at Work to do her sharing, which is really going to talk about organization dynamics, employment, industrial relations in Vietnam. So yeah, Ms. Hart, over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I am Hadang, and I would like to share my screen for a moment. That you've been seeing it? Hello?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you. Great.
You're seeing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I would like to follow what Ms. Chi talk about this overall picture in Vietnam, and especially in COVID-19. I would have 2 sections to share with you today. One is very slightly based on our experience working with business in Vietnam during COVID-19. And the second part is about what we've been doing and what we've supposed to look at the opportunity from the 2 very important trade agreement, which is CPTPP and EVFTA. So let me first start with COVID-19 and business in Vietnam. This is a picture in front of you. Is this how we're encouraging our clients and our partner looking at COVID and post-COVID, and how we think about resilience, the way that basically business would go through the difficult time. So the first thing I would like to tell you that the overall really cases and case study we're working on business in Vietnam, including in having FDI or some element of foreign investment. In general, business in Vietnam is more resilient in COVID-19 than business as usual. Well, I'm saying that because in business as usual, there's so many reports and so many, information you've been telling so far, and business performance is always challenged by bureaucratics, politics, labor politics, and all things can be in a package, and it's not easy to figure out why, and it's really kind of slowed down. We talk about the growth, but the pace and the quality of this market itself is still in question, like many reports already say. And also in business as usual, opportunity mindset is sometimes it's heavier than business mindset. But amazing in this in COVID-19, and a lot of people just in our very much conference and workshop with clients, we're making a joke that maybe it's in the spirit of Vietnam, we're going through the war, and maybe we're doing better than during war than during a peaceful time. And amazing during COVID-19, bureaucracy and politics literally can address this. You see not only by the government addressing the situation with COVID-19, pretty much controlling it and see the success on a global scale, but all those bureaucracies and politics being addressed pretty aggressively, more than business as usual. And for business perspective or business mindset, a lot of leaders really show it, and the way that they also see that the threat of uncertainty and crisis actually giving a threat of catalyst for real changes. And the real changes here is so much we see by business when doing with digital transformation, changing inequality, not just quantity of what we're seeing the market, the client, and their own workforce. So in general, we bring this little model to see the picture is simply, you see under here, is there's the 4 circles going out, what we call is organizational, and how to, organizational profile or organizational DNA, with 4 typical type of zone that organizations belong to in COVID-19. And it's easier for us to listen to the
It's 14 hours.
And explain to them what they need to be doing and what the goal and how to achieve it. And number 1 is the fear zone. You see a little one inside with a guy who's a little bit scared. Learning zone is one who's still working on in the situation and how to learn the market and learn themselves. The very bright green here is the resilient zone, and every business wants to looking forward. They want to bounce back the way it's supposed to be after the catastrophic of this COVID-19. And the very large, bigger scale circle around is the value-aligned zone. This is where this business truly find their own value in the market and how to position themselves. This is the way we explain and get into the action, how business would need to do. And because of time constraint, we would like to share with you some of the success story that we're considering good story to share with you during COVID-19. And we're also expecting a few more to come because like Ms. Chi said, this, some of the case would bring back, especially we're working not only with manufacturing. We already have a very, very much limited demand from the foreign market, but also in other industry like tourism and hospitality, services like school and hospital as well. Yeah, I have the little figures from what seeing. We're working with about 45 countries, and we come to generalize it for you to see that resilient zone is quite a number of 12%. Although other zone is very important, where the leader truly really want to know, okay, where we are now, what we need to do, and whether we can do it. So this is a fear guy. This is the guy in fear zone with the company that's fun, and most of our clients really like it. Let's talk about what goes resilient. But it's affecting as many companies, especially on transformation company. We talk about hot above, cold below. And companies really want to do something, but everybody is agree with nobody do anything. So this is particularly with one manufacturing of about 1.5 thousand workers. And the situation when they start to call us is when they start to lay off people. And here's it's been on the news that they actually lay off people, that affecting the situation of their own buyers in the US. And the buyer actually have to report and talk to a different government and organization about the situation, why they let the supplier doing that, although before they committed to sustainability and responsibility, social responsibility. But going back to the situation, we actually help the company to look at the way to communication in this way to the crisis, and to see what the contract is talking about major force during COVID-19. If that's the case, it's really important to make the company settle down the situation with their own worker, with their own workforce, without letting another level of other crisis that they see at their own company, in their own zone. Open and close organization in learning zone. We have another picture where you're showing that this is the Miss V in the middle. She wearing a, traditional tie, and whether she want to go forward, company want to go before her or after her. They also want to close and open and close. At this point, we have an experience with international school where they have really struggling with the fact that what they're gonna do during this moment when they actually still thinking about open, but they are still in learning zone with their own guests, own customer. In this case, is the parents of a student who have to have this, demonstration in front of the school for very much long time to make sure that they pay for their, they have to pay for the right pay for their own student, for their own kid school fee. It's make everywhere, and got to know that how much the companies really have in learning zone of understand their own clients. Another settle down that we help the company is actually another way is to settling down and communication with all guests, and going back to the situation that how the company really need to understand their own guests in this very sensitive situation. The cultural differences and cultural gap that the Vietnamese, both in a sense of being a customer and being the service provider. This is very interesting case, and what we own to, we have a different kind of guests also going through digital transformation as well, and having a situation with guests when it's actually still open, but they have situation with the guests right in COVID-19, laying their own hotels.
Ms. Hao, we have about 3 minutes left. So.
Yeah. So the resident zone is a company is very successful. Then we very proud to talk about it. During COVID-19, they stay open, and they was one heated one. It's been in hospitality, and only three weeks will make them help them to be able to propose to the owner of the corporation to keep this open when other company around them sit down and close. And by doing that, they bounce back very quickly after COVID-19. Even now, they have a full 100% occupancy, and it's very, very busy business right now. The last one is a people-centric organization with certain value aligned. The companies would be able to persuade during COVID-19 for their own workers to stay home and work for them voluntarily, because they're expecting to get their job back after the COVID-19. And this is a picture of how business can actually do the right way for their own people, and now they make the company stays very sustainable even during COVID-19. So basically, we share a lot of picture how the leaderships, cord cutting and governance with backlinks all the very simple message to the leader, and make the pace of closing and closing the gap in misunderstanding and differences between themselves. That is the reason why we considering that resilience would be very important at this point for business, and at the same time with other company would come to Vietnam and the new one as well. Very few minutes for VTFTA and the business. Basically, our impact, our message is simple. You already know about those all the economic impact, but also the sensitive situation with the business. But I would like to focus on very big, and you see this number of export scale growth and efficiency in the few industry, including apparel, footwear. In the yellow one, you see the way that the ranking is showing the low efficiency that we need to focus on. And right now, we also are consulting the government of Vietnam and how to look at efficiency with more on a scale or growth to make a balance. Simply make it. I would have more time on this, but we kind of looking in a Q&A. But basically, to produce a T-shirt display supply chain governance and original with anything is supposed to get the value of a t-shirt made in Vietnam, getting more of a, their own position in the global market. Let's look at not only the requirement on the left is human rights, environment protection, and on the right hand is certificate origin of cotton or accessory like technology. The very much is more investor in education and operational efficiencies. Is really bringing to more knowledge economy to the country at this point to gain much more. The quality instead of quantity is really something very important at point, and we're looking forward to more investor looking at the business in this regard. So that is our very brief information we'll share with you. We're very happy to get up to the Q&A later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Han. I think you talked about the foreign trade agreements. I mean, that is a big advantage. I think Vietnam has been well positioned under multilateral agreements like the CPTPP,
yeah.
Where it gets a lot of advantage from this network of agreements. But there are many companies that I think don't fully make use of some of these multilateral agreements to get the exemptions and benefits that we should. So that is a key takeaway for companies. So next, I'd like to invite Asano-san, who's heading Yamada Consulting Group in Vietnam. So he has many years of experience of the Vietnamese environment, and also Japanese companies operating in Vietnam. So could I invite Asano-san to do a sharing, and please go ahead to share your screen.
Yeah. Could you share the screen?
Oh, Marie, actually, could you?
Yes. Just give me.
Yeah. So thank you very much for participating. And I'm General Director of Yamada Consulting, Japanese consulting companies. And still recently, Japanese investors try to market research to enter the Vietnamese market. They cannot enter to Vietnam because there's no flight from Japan. But so they asked to our company or Spire to make some research of the Vietnamese market. So today I will introduce some key points to make an investment to Vietnam market and in the perspective of the Japanese investor. So this slide shows like a supply chain in the Southeast Asia and China. I think that after the corona, maybe in this April, the supply chain from China and the other Southeast Asian countries stopped. But I think that after 1 month or 2 months, the supply chain from China will recovered. So in Vietnam, there's no chance to correct all of the parts. So Japanese investors try to correct some parts from the China, mainly from the South China, such as Guangzhou. So after recovering the supply chain from the China, Japanese manufacturer in Vietnam also recovered to manufacture and also export. So the style of the Japanese investor, especially the manufacturers, getting the some parts from the South China and assembly in Vietnam and the export from the port, such as the Haiphong port. Recently, Japanese government support the investor for Japanese investor to make a new investment and expand to the business in Vietnam. So 15 Japanese companies will get some support from the Japanese government. So I think that in this 1 year or 2 years, they will move to their factory from China to also they expand the factory in Vietnam. So, but I think there's almost no support from Vietnamese government. So Japanese investors wish to get some kind of the support, like a tax incentive or something. And please go to the next slide. So this one shows like workers' wage and the labor force. I think the Vietnam is the key point of Vietnam is like a low wage level compared with like Philippines or Indonesia. So Japanese company always try to compare the wage level, and and also Vietnam has just 10 or 11 holidays. So I think that wage level per day is the lowest in these areas. So that is also the very suitable locations for Japanese manufacturers. And even though there's around 100 million populations, so this is also support for the abundant labor force. So they try to move to Japanese investors try to move the labor intensive factory to Vietnam. And next slide. And recently, the market of Vietnam, market in Vietnam is also expanding. I think the GDP per capita is almost around the 3,000. So beyond the 3,000 US dollars, the people buy the private car and also use a kind of the convenience store or something. So recently, Japanese investors try to invest to factory to sell their products to the Vietnamese market. I think the market in South area around the Ho Chi Minh City is a little bit bigger than the market in Hanoi. So Japanese investors try to make this kind of factory for the domestic market is mainly in the South areas. So, and also that, I think that there's some wealthy class. So in Ho Chi Minh City, there's some Japanese mega store or Ion Mall or something. So that is the target of the Japanese investors. So like a Ion Mall or some kind of the retail shops try to open the new stores in Vietnam. Okay, next slide, please. And this one is the brand of the fashions for the younger generations. I think that there's some foreign brands in Vietnam, and also there's some Vietnamese brand. So in the middle of this slide, there's a company brand name of NEM, NEM. So yeah, Japanese investors already take over the share of these companies. So I think that there's some chance to take over some shares of this kind of Vietnamese brand and also expand to the sales in Vietnam. I think that in this just 2 or 3 years, like these kind of Vietnamese brands expanded 2 or 3 times their shops. So I think that this is a more rapidly expanding market in Vietnam or maybe in the world. So next one, please. So in conclusion, in last 20 years, Japanese investors try to make like manufacturing companies. You know, in Vietnam, there's a name of the EPE. EPE means the Export Processing Enterprise. So Japanese company get the EPE license and they make some products and they export almost 100% to the foreign countries, like especially to the Japanese market or US market. But from now or in these 2 or 3 years, Japanese investors try to enter the Vietnamese market, and they just try to open the subsidiary. But currently, the Japanese investors try to get some shares of the Vietnamese companies. I think that in last years, there's more than 30 cases of M&A from Japanese investors to Vietnam. So I think that this is a current trend of Japanese investors. So this is my presentation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Asano-san. I think that's a very good note to move to the Q&A. I think you mentioned 30 cases of M&A of Japanese companies in Vietnam. So the M&A market many people have observed has been picking up after COVID-19, and many buyers are now quite aggressive to look for M&A opportunities in countries like Vietnam. And I think Spire and YCG are well positioned to support you with research and advisory services for companies that are keen to look for opportunities, in different provinces in Vietnam. And that's something to keep in mind. Okay, we have maybe about 20 minutes for questions. I think we have some questions on the message board. I'll just go to the first one, and I'll pose the question to all the panelists. So anyone who'd like to respond, please feel free to jump in. And our head of marketing communications, Marie, feel free to speak up if you have some questions that you see on the message board as well. So the first question is really on e-commerce. So Chi, you were sharing with us about how the retail environment in Vietnam is still dominated by traditional retail, by mom and pop shops, rather than kind of modern, organized physical retail shops like hypermarkets, supermarkets, and so on. But a lot of companies that want to sell in Vietnam are going into e-commerce. And we talked about the challenges, like the logistics infrastructure, I think still has to play catch up. People are waiting quite a long time for their deliveries, 4 days, 5 days, But e-commerce is obviously growing. And the question is really, when we look at e-commerce in Vietnam, does it really support the whole country? Can you sell to second-tier cities and third-tier city consumers, using e-commerce platforms? And what are some of the best platforms and some of the best strategies to use when selling to the Vietnamese consumer through e-commerce? Anyone would like to?
Yeah, let me take the part of the answer is MSRing. Actually, e-commerce is expanding, and we can see that Vietnam population is more than 90 million, but the e-commerce user is almost 78% from 80 to 64. That means the user must be also allocated in the rural. So it brought the convenience of e-commerce, but if we look deeper in the revenue, we can see that mostly the small product can reach to the rural as a deliver condition. But for the big product like electronic or other, is that other part, it take quite high revenue. It's been very difficult to reach to the very rural. For the urban, it can be. So it still need to improve a lot about the logistics and delivery. And for the next question is about the highest e-commerce player in Vietnam. Up to now, and in my slide, I also share the Shopee and Tiki. They get the highest traffic in Vietnam markets, and they are still improve a lot to try to take bigger share in Vietnam market. Anyway, for one small highlight is as our selling in Vietnam still very traditional market. So there are many players, they had to combine the solution between e-commerce and also the traditional business. So they combine between the store and e-commerce, because Vietnam consumer, they still want to experience the product before they make the decision. So for Vietnam market, it's quite different with other markets. So if you want to win over Vietnam market and to save the cost investment, you need to understand about the market's landmark first, and to create the right strategy to approach to successful.
Well, that's interesting. So I think Vietnamese consumer, what you're saying is that they do want to physically experience the product in a showroom or physical store. But of course, they may buy online, so it's important to have both the online go-to-market and also a physical go-to-market, and that could be done through flagship stores, branded stores, showrooms, multi-brand, working with multi-brand retailers. So that's a good point. And I think also the other point is that the logistics industry has a lot of catch-up to do, so that's an opportunity for logistics players. I think the third-party logistics, last mile delivery industry has a lot of room to grow in Vietnam. It's a big country. It's a very long country.
Yeah, correct.
70 plus provinces, and I know the government is definitely promoting this logistics industry as well. So, so there are opportunities there. Any other comments on e-commerce from the other panelists?
Can I add something? I think that there's a great opportunity to enter the like a payment, like an e-payment, because for the e-commerce in Vietnam, we have to pay in cash for like a Tiki or Shopee. So I think that in another country there's some like a e-finance, like so.
And Alibaba and all these things, yeah.
So I think Vietnam have to invest more the infrastructure to this kind of the payment. So I think that there's a great opportunity to make an investment from the foreign countries.
Yeah, but as I understand, we'll give a highlight about one of the point for the e-commerce to win over. But actually in Vietnam currently, there are many e-payment, e-wallets is created and to support the e-commerce. But one of the disadvantages that all the e-wallets is not really connect together to make the convenient for the consumer, for the end user. Anyway, Vietnamese government is encourage the people to use the cashless. So that is when the bank jump in the service that they discount for the transaction free. And a lot of in our presentation for the credit card used for the payment or bank transfer being used a lot in Vietnam, and especially booming during the COVID because the social distance. So people, and after that, people will build up the habit that use more for the banking service or like use the cashless. So it's also one of the advantages under the pandemic, I think.
Yes.
I think I just want to add on one very sliding is that the trust of the customers on those to the e-banking and e-payment system is everywhere mostly private, but the government is supporting it. But the trust is maybe in the law in imposing it and how to really make the system go and the customer go, okay, how I can make the consumption going with the trust that, okay, my money, if I get the good or I don't get the good, I get my money back. All that sitting is this key reason why people would like to see their good first before they pay, and that COD in some of the system is working right now.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess what we're hearing today is that the e-payment environment is still immature in Vietnam. So there are a number of players offering services like e-wallets and so on, and government is promoting this, and government wants to achieve a cashless society, as many governments do, but there's still some way to go. So in the future, we will probably see more innovation. We may see some consolidation within this e-payment space in Vietnam, and there's certainly room, as Asano-san said, for more new players to come in and dominate the market. So it's still an immature and changing space, but one that's definitely growing, because you can't just forever operate on COD, obviously. And I think that was also the trajectory in China. I think initially everything was COD in China when e-commerce was taking off, but then you had players coming in like Alibaba Group with their ends payment solution and so on and so forth. That gradually everybody was using their mobile phones to make payment. Okay, I'd like to move to the second question, which is really about the China factor. So that's obviously on a lot of people's minds. So there are increasing geopolitical tensions going on between Western countries and China, and also Japan, and countries like Korea and China as well. And there's been a lot of talk of companies wanting to locate some of their production outside of China to complement the manufacturing they do in China, or even to move factories out of China into other locations. And Vietnam is often the number one location that comes up when we have these kinds of conversations. So I'd just like to ask everyone, what are you seeing on the ground in Vietnam? Do you see a lot of international companies really talking about this, wanting to move production out of China, or balance the production in China with production in Vietnam? And what are some of the stories, or what are some of the advice that you may have to give to companies that are thinking about this issue?
Let me take the part first, because as we also sharing, Vietnam have a lot of advantages for the situation as we are the neighbor with China. So it's easier for the manufacturer to move to Vietnam. It support them about moving costs and also the logistics. And besides it, as one of the reasons people want to focus in China because of the material, also the labor, that is a part of Vietnam also. We can support a part of the need from the manufacturer. And one of the proofs for that is we see that just 15 Japanese manufacturers, they make a decision and also support from Japanese government to move to Vietnam. And it's just the announcement just been made within this earlier this month. So we can see that the step from Japanese government, and surely it had the reason for their decision, because they had to invest their budget to support for the manufacturer. So, and besides for the Vietnam advances, it's also the government, Vietnam government action to support for the foreigner manufacturer come to Vietnam. And we share that facing with the pandemic, Vietnam government reduced for the land, the free of landing, and also the delay of the tax, and also they reduce the tax of the corporation and the being delay. So a lot of law and rule being support for the FDI to move to Vietnam. And even Vietnamese government open for the foreigner to, of course, to acquire Vietnamese company and being owner of the company for 100%. That is previously is never been open for the chance like that. So I think it's the cooperate between our advantage of the location and also Vietnam government reaction for the situation.
And any other comments on China factor that you're seeing in terms of your clients in Vietnam? Okay, if not, then maybe let me just go on to another question, which is from Nancy Hong, and she is really talking about, I believe if I understand the question correctly, about economic nationalism in the world. So the question is that, if you look around the world now, countries like the US, UK, many European countries are also trying to produce more stuff domestically and to import less from the global economy because of considerations of economic security. Many countries, I think, were caught out by COVID and they did not have enough domestic production of food or even medical supplies like masks or ventilators or things like that. So, there is concern that the world will enter a phase of economic nationalism. And, Vietnam's economy is very, very globalized. I think we talked about that. Very export-oriented, very driven by exports, by foreign direct investment, and connections to the global economy. So, do you all think that Vietnam economy may be affected by this trend? If it gets worse, any thoughts on that? Well, maybe I'll take a stab at answering this. I mean, as an economist, I do look at these things, and from my observations, global trade has been slowing down even before the COVID pandemic. And this is a trend that economists call globalization. So the growth of global trade was very high in the years after the Second World War. And I think that picked up from the 1980s all the way till about the global financial crisis in 2009. And then since the global financial crisis until now, the growth in trade has been a bit sluggish. And since about 2016, the growth in global trade has actually become even more slow. So I think it's not a new trend. I mean, this tendency towards some economic nationalism, and it is something that we see. But at the same time, I think looking at what we can see around the world, there's no question that we will return to an era where countries are kind of having trade wars with each other, and everyone is trying to manufacture everything domestically or within one economic bloc. I think we're very, very, very far away from that. Most of the supply chains for categories that are very important to the world economy, like industrial equipment, like food, like electronic goods, like automotives, extremely complex with many, many different parts and raw materials made all around the world. And it's really impossible to change that anytime soon, even within 10 years or 20 years. And there are so many cost advantages and specialization, comparative advantage of trade. The different countries have manufacturing different things. That is very hard for countries to really turn back the clock. So I would imagine that while the growth in exports and foreign direct investment may be less, there will be more competition for exports, more competition for foreign direct investment. But the exports and foreign direct investment will still be there, and we will not be entering an era of autarky, anytime in the foreseeable future. And really, what is going to change is that there's just a lot more competition, and countries that are very competitive, like Vietnam, which have a very good cost structure, very progressive kind of pro-business government policies, high quality of labor, and so on, are going to be well positioned to be winners in that competition. That would be my perspective on that question.
May I add on that? We have a lot of discussion with various, government leaders, but also big corporation leaders. And the chance would be there is some, economic naturalization will come for. We don't believe that this kind of crisis is going to be end soon. And the fact of the matter is, well, people don't see the length of the when actually we, find the vaccine for COVID-19 and a lot more other virus come in. That's one of a chance, but most of the case was very positive about globalization and still happening, and it's really hard to slow down that trend because everybody's keeping believing in what we're supposed to do, and especially when people should have free movement. We have a lot of case from hospitality when group in the US, and they spend elderly people thinking about building elderly home in such country like Vietnam, feel safer with better interesting medical care from their perspective, and then a lot of opportunity to live in a country with much less situation, and then in manufacturing as well. It's just a matter of, like I say, the quality and efficiency with come on the fact that this time we will look more on the quality, not just quantity like before. And the question of cost effectiveness is going to be on top of the story. And like you said, the competition is going to be more severe than before. And everybody needs to sit down and really think about the formula of calculating better of their strategy than before.
Thank you. Okay, well, we are a little bit over time, so I think we will just have time for one more question, and we will probably have to close it. But for those, if we did not get around to your question, we're very happy to have a conversation outside the event. So really, the next question is directed to Asano-san, particularly about Japanese investors. So this question is saying that there are many foreign companies who would rather acquire a minority share in Vietnamese company rather than to acquire the majority share or 100% of share in Vietnamese companies, because they are worried about the regulations and laws in Vietnam, and they don't feel confident to manage majority share of the company to deal with all the government regulations, so they take a minority share instead. Is this a trend that you're seeing among Japanese companies for M&A?
I think there are some reasons, but the main reason is the difficulty of the due diligence of the Vietnamese companies. So it is very difficult to understand the real situation of the Vietnamese company. So first of all, Japanese investors make an investment like 5% or 10%. So and like in 2 or 3 years, like both get more familiar, and after that they try to expand them to majority or 100%. So this is the reason that first of all Japanese investors make a very small percentage of taking over the share of the Vietnamese companies.
Thank you very much. So it's really not either or. I mean, they may start with a small percentage, but there could be clauses in the agreement that allow them to increase their share depending on certain conditions being fulfilled and so on. And then only when they feel comfortable that they can manage in that environment. Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'm so sorry to all those who we didn't get to in terms of your questions. As I said, please do direct any further inquiries to us at Spire. We'd be happy to discuss some of those questions together with our panelists offline. So I think since we're about 5 minutes over time, we will have to close the session today. I just want to thank all our panelists for taking time out. I want to thank all of you, the audience, for taking time out of your afternoon. I hope it's been useful for you. We hope to continue the conversation with you, and we hope to meet up and be of service to you as you expand in Vietnam and indeed, the rest of Asia and the world. Okay, we'll end the session here. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day and a good rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.